Well, hi everyone, and thank you very much for watching or listening. It's Liam Hartree here again today with another episode of the Simply Inspired podcast. Today, I'm very honored to be joined by a very special athlete, ultra runner, mountain runner, Three Peaks Challenge completer, I suppose is the best way to put it, Martin Rutherford. Today, we're going to be talking not only about his incredible journey through the world of ultra running, which is obviously one of the toughest sports in the world, although also an incredible sport for personal growth and development, an incredible sport for seeing the sights of nature and being part of the natural world as well. So we're going to be talking about his past, present, and future plans with that, how we got into it and everything. But as always with my talks, we will be going a bit deeper than just talking about the athletic side. We'll be touching on some mindset topics, some methods that hopefully you, the viewers, can use to pursue your own dreams and goals in life, whether they relate to running or whether they relate to something else entirely, as we'll be giving a shout out to that as well. And stay tuned, everybody. Some great content coming up. And Martin, thank you so much for coming on the show, my friend. As I said before we started recording, I know we've had to move around with this while I've moved countries and everything. Thank you for being with me, and it's wonderful to finally have you on the show today. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you for asking me to come on. It's a real privilege to be on and have a chat to you. And yeah, it's good to eventually see you and catch up, which is good.
Absolutely, absolutely a pleasure. So, like I said to you just now before we started, starting at the beginning of your journey, starting at the beginning of potentially your life. I mean, I don't know the answer to this one, but when it comes to growing up, whether you were involved in sports, whether you were involved in running, being in the outdoors, any of that type of thing, or whether that's something that came later, let's start there, and let's also give a little mention to where you grew up and where you're from, please. If that's okay to start with.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was born on a small island on the west coast of Scotland, a little island called the Isle of Bute, which is just adjacent to Glasgow there, next to an island called Isle of Arran, which is a bit more famous. It's got some beautiful mountain tops there. My island, where I come from, is a lot more flatter, but very, very beautiful. Small though, about 5,000 people population, something like that. I was born there, but then I moved from there when I was five onto the mainland, and then I grew up in the mainland in a place called Kilmarnock, which is not far from Glasgow. But we used to always go back to the island every weekend and every holidays and stuff because my family were there. Well, my mum's mum, my nana and that. So eventually over time I moved back to the island when I was 15, I think it was. So I grew up in Kilmarnock, and I wasn't very sporty. I wasn't into running. Really, wasn't into sports. I played football, the odd football really, but I wasn't really involved in any teams or anything when I was younger. Outdoors a lot of the time, but that was mainly just because my mother used to kick us out quite a lot, and we were told not to stay in the house. So you used to go on adventures and stuff like that. But um, it wasn't really. I didn't really get into running until really later on. And I I did try a bit of running when I was younger. I tried a bit of running when I was about probably about 17, I think, and I just didn't like it. I didn't like I was just didn't like the way it made me feel. I was so out of breath, and I just did not enjoy it. I didn't connect with it whatsoever. Um, and so for many years, it was just really kind of put away in the back burner, um, and then just really kind of focused on work. And a lot of my years, probably 15 odd years, was just a case of working. I used to work in shop fitting industry, and I used to travel around the country, Scotland and England and Ireland, working constantly, 7 days a week, 3 weeks on an end before you had a weekend off. So a lot of my life has just been like that, working, and then I'd got married and had some kids, and then built my own business up, and that was the point then, I think, when I really kind of found running because I needed a stress relief. Running my own business was extremely, extremely stressful. And so um, I took to the first, stress reliever, which was alcohol, which was beer, and yeah, I just woke up one morning and I just thought, you know what, this isn't what I want to do anymore. I needed another way of just relieving stress, and running, that was it. Running came into it. And so that's kind of where, yeah, running started 2016, not long ago, really. Um, Kind of, as I say, up to that point, I'd maybe done a few 10Ks, I did a marathon, um, but never really had the time to commit to it. And then 2016, I'd heard of this thing called ultra running, ultra marathons. So I decided to kind of venture into that, and explore that really. It interested me because it's something that not a lot of people were doing at the time, and you're pushing your bodies, you're pushing your boundaries. And I've always been very much like that growing up, wanting to push myself to my limits and see where I can go with things, whether it's in a work environment or an adventure environment. Bungee jumping, skydiving, whitewater rafting, that kind of stuff was always kind of um, excited me. And this new ultra world really excited us to see, because you could just push yourself as much as you can and see where you go. So that's kind of where we went to with running, how I got into it, really.
That's an amazing story, absolutely amazing story, and you've achieved a lot in quite a short time. Then, from that point of view, which we'll get to. Before we do this, something you mentioned as well earlier before we were recording, where you said that you're the type of person who doesn't really sit still. You have a lot of energy, or that something along those lines you mentioned briefly, and I'd like to touch on that because everything I touch on in these calls, it's always from the point of view of how it can help someone, how it can inspire somebody, how people can feel, things they can relate to, from this call. And I think that's something very valuable because a lot.
Are you there?
A
Can you
lot
hear
of
me? You
people
cut
having
off.
to, you're running. Oh, did I freeze
Sorry, you,
then?
you you cut off there just as you were going into asking me a question. Sorry.
Oh, no worries at all. All I was saying was, by the way, if anything like that happens and it's really bad, I'll cut it. But
Yeah.
it does occasionally happen with these. But no, all I was saying was about the fact that with you being a person who has a lot of energy and a lot of output like that, uh,
Yeah.
saying is that everything I talk about in these interviews is to make people feel, things they can relate to, things they can use in their own lives. And I think a lot of people will relate to having this sort of excess energy, however that manifests for you personally. So can we briefly touch on that and how that factors into you running these great distances, please?
Yeah. I mean, I think yeah. So the phrase that I can't sit still. It's something that I've known for many years. I am certainly not one for going on holidays and sitting by the pool, that kind of person. I need to be moving all the time. And so over the years, I just thought this was normal. I just thought this was a normal thing. Everyone does this basically. But, when I kind of really found it out was when I started the running, and it starts to kind of click on a few things when I think back in the years of being able to, do the shot fitting and working 7 days a week, 12 to 13 hours a day, doing go shifts from 24 to 30 hours, just working non-stop, um, and then still keep moving. And so I think I, I, I need to channel that into something, because I have tried forcing myself a lot of the times to sit still, to relax. And I just get really agitated. Doesn't say that I can't do it a lot of the all the time. There are moments where I do it, but normally that's just because I'm so exhausted, absolutely exhausted. So I found that you know going into ultra running, it has helped so much on both sides. ultra running has helped that, and this has helped ultra running. It has found it has made me find a purpose for it, or some way to channel it in a positive way. Um, uh, Before I would channel it into work, and I was working, ridiculous hours, and for many many years. I never really seen my children because I was working that much. I would be out from 7 in the morning before they got up, and then I wasn't home until 9 o'clock at night. This would you go on for weeks and weeks, and so I was channeling that, not sitting still, that high energy into that. And at the time it was great. The work was very good, money was coming in, we were living a good life and stuff. But it was just there was just that part missing of me not being there for my kids and stuff. So um, that's again go back a little bit to why I found running. I needed to find somewhere to channel the stress, to be able to try and then calm it down, and then calm the workload down. Um, but in a way of it helping doing the ultra distances, just it's just like being like the Duracell bunny. You just have this energy that just keeps going and going and going. And that doesn't mean to say you've got all this energy, you can run really fast, you're super, super. You just can keep going on and on. And the positives of that obviously is you can push yourself to these extreme limits and boundaries and do these amazing things. The negatives of it obviously are that you can't sleep very well. I struggle with sleep every single night because I've just got so much energy, and I have different rituals that I try to let me unwind. Whether it's different teas and yoga, but I'd be lucky if I get a good 4 hours solid sleep every night. I'm waking 3 times, 4 times a night. So I'm still working on that. I don't know how to kind of fix that really, but um, I find with the running, it's yeah, even after I do a very long run, still have bundles of energy. Just don't know what to do with it sometimes.
Well, that is definitely a gift. I mean, I know obviously it has upsides and downsides and everything. But I mean, I'm not going to get into this now, but there's a lot of things that personally I relate to with that as well. And I remember when I was in school, they tried to put different labels on me to do with this type of thing and everything. And I don't really subscribe to that, but I definitely get where you're coming from.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people will who are listening to this. So thank you for sharing that. Now, obviously, with the ultras themselves, you mentioned trying all these different things. You said about 10Ks, you said about a marathon you tried. Obviously other pursuits like I think you mentioned skydiving and various things you tried as well. Did you ever anticipate going as far as you have with this in the beginning? Even after you say you finished a marathon or something, did you ever think you'd be doing like 100 miles and taking it as far as you have?
Not definitely not at the beginning of it. I don't think I foreseen or even had any kind of wish to go as far as I'm going right now and distance wise. I always I just look at the distance that I'm doing at the time, and then that really kind of that relates a lot to even going in bigger distances. When you're doing the bigger distances, you put it down to small bite-sized chunks. And so at the beginning, when I started ultra running, my first ultra distance was the double marathon, so it was 52 miles over the Melbourne Hills, um, and I'd given myself pretty much 5 months to train for that, really. And the training consisted of just doing shorter distances, 10Ks, and then a couple of fun runs and stuff like that, basically. But when I signed up for that 52, that I thought that was it. I thought that would be the kind of that would be it for me. I've ticked that box, I've pushed myself to that limit, and and yeah, that would be kind of it really. But when I finished that one, I kind of felt that I could done more. And I don't think what kind of really attracted me to going into more running of it was the distance side of things. It was actually the time that I was out there that I found so relaxing, um, mindfully so relaxing. I was really, not as stressed as what I was, and so I fell in love more so with being outdoors at that time and stuff. So um, I think from there, then I then kind of started to look into, not so much bigger distances, but I think locations was where I kind of started looking into more running in the mountains, um, and some extreme locations where you're looking at like ridge running, sky running over places like Crib Goch, Ben Nevis ridges and stuff like that. So. Um, that then kind of opened up a larger world to me when it came to that. When I started to then mix my uh, the extreme activities that I like to do with the running, that just kind of blew my mind as where it could go with it really. And then you start to add in distance to that as well. It's just yeah, I think now, I mean, this I would love to do so many amazingly big things, bigger than what has ever been achieved. But um, yeah, I think I'll focus on one thing at the moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, as I said before, you're doing some amazing, amazing achievements, and we will definitely talk about them now. The way I usually break this sort of down with people who've achieved a lot, or I don't know actually how many races you've run in total, but when there's people who've achieved a lot like you have, I tend to break it down into talking about people's favorites. And the reason I do that is because as much as I would love to talk about every single one, with most people we'd be here until like next week, or we'd be here until next month, or and I'd love to do it. But with yourself personally, I'm going to ask you what your favorite races are, your proudest achievements. It depends on how you look at it, but obviously there's things here like the Three Peaks, and there's things like the 440 miles, I think it is, isn't it, which is
Mm.
absolutely mind-blowing. I'd like to talk about that one specifically, but in terms of this. Now, it doesn't just have to be the distance as well, just to give this a bit of context, because what you were saying there, I'm really glad you brought that up about the scenery and about the places that you get to see, that a lot of people don't necessarily get the chance to see like you do. And it might be your favorite race from that, I mean, maybe it wasn't the longest distance, maybe it was just a special place that has stayed with you. So what I'm getting at is it can come in different forms. But yeah, a big question. But if we narrow it down to maybe two, three, four, something like that, that are really the most special to you personally, let's talk about those, please.
Yeah, I think yeah, you're right. I mean, it's hard to kind of really, pinpoint down a specific race that you've done that you enjoy as much because yeah, you're right. There have been quite a few. There have been many, but um, and as you read, that it's difficult to kind of say, well, that was a special one because of this, or that was a special one because of that. There's a special one because of positioning. I won that race, or I podiumed in that race, or I came top 10 in that race. So there's that kind of special part about the races and stuff, which yeah, that's great. I think, but for me, I think what really kind of makes the races special is the location and also the journey that I go on when I do that race. Um, the probably the best from the location point of view was Transvolcania, which is over in the island of La Palma. I think it was La Palma, where you're basically running over all the volcanoes. There's about 4 or 5 different volcanoes in this race, and you're going over the mountainous tops and stuff, and it's all ash basically. So it's a completely different type of train that you're running on. But I went over there on my own and spent the week there. Spent a few days building up to the race and just kind of trying to relax and get myself built into the race and stuff ready mentally for the race. Um, um, and then after the race, I then went out exploring because I was there for another couple of days, but out exploring other parts of the island, running still. So that specific race for me is one that will always stick with me because it was a long duration from being there and having a bit of a holiday with it. Um, but running over a volcano, man, that's just for me that just blows my mind. And you know the the fun that I had and during the race, but the fun that I had afterwards and exploring different areas that the race didn't cover because the race covers from the north of the island to the south of the island. It's over. uh, 55, 60 kilometers, I think it is, something like that. Um, but it goes on a specific route through the middle. So there's other areas I'd like to explore, and I did that, and so that one for me will always be a very, 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 memorable one, because of the location of it and such things. Other ones, I mean, recently that I've just did was I did one in Snowdonia and Snowdon, in Wales, sorry, which is called the UTS, the Ultra Trail Snowdonia, and that's 165 kilometers around uh, North Wales, really. It pretty much covers there's a round there called the Paddy Buckley round. I don't know if you've heard of that, but that pretty much takes in all of the main ranges, mountain ranges. Um, and so this one for me was a big one because I'd attempted to do it a couple of years ago, and sadly I had to DNF, did not finish. I had to pull out just around about 45 miles because my stomach went on us. I just wasn't feeling well. I was feeling very nauseous going up the mountains and stuff. And so um, for me, going back and doing that one was something special. And I was out there for 46 and a half hours doing this, and that I was broken. It's just such a tough race. It's probably the toughest one in this country that I've done for sure. Um, you're topping out Snowdon, twice. You're taking in, big mountains like Travan, and you're going over the Glidders, and you're going through bogs. And we had all of the weather as well. We had beautiful sunshine. It was just scorching during the day. Um, and then you went into the evening. It was still very warm, but you're going knee deep in bogs. And I went through a real mental journey with that one, as I do with all of the big races. You go through you go through stages of being very, very high, being very euphoric, to feeling on top of the world. You kind of are. You're on a mountain, so but happy, really, really happy to be out there. And then you feel incredible low when you're exhausted and you're tired and you haven't slept for 40 odd hours. Um, and it's that journey of going up and going down and going up and going down that keeps me going back and doing these types of races or challenges. I think, because um, as much as my body hates to sit still, my brain also can't sit still. And so it's constantly on the go all the time. And so, going to these type of races where you're you're forced to focus basically on the there and now. You're forced to focus on one foot in front of the other. Allows me to control that and slow that brain down and basically push out everything else that is basically going 100 miles an hour in there. Because if you don't, you're going to fall. You're going to hurt yourself. Some of these routes are extremely technical. Um, and so again, that then jumps to really the reason why I love doing these types of races, because it allows me obviously to channel this energy that I have, but it also allows me to switch this off and here. And so yeah, those are probably two that kind of stick out. There are others, obviously, that I've done that have pushed me to my limits. One in Switzerland that I did was again another 38 hours, I think it was, and that was around the Swiss Alps. And it was, yeah, for me, the memorable ones are the tougher ones, the ones where I go to breaking point and return, and then breaking point and return, you know.
Yeah. That is incredible. I mean, I'm very grateful for you sharing that, to be honest, mate, because I'm always aware when I do these, especially with people who have as many stories as you're bound to have and everything, where, we're only going to scratch the surface, really. But at the same time, getting some stories from a few of your favorite ones, I'm very happy with that because it really highlights what the experience is like for you. It puts myself and the audience sort of in your shoes for just a minute there, in terms of the way you describe it. It's very vivid and very alive. So you can really sort of get into what it was like. So very grateful for you sharing that, a few of your favorites, and narrowing it down, because it's not an easy thing to do when when I ask people that. I think I mentioned this, but touching on the 400-mile one and everything like that, I would like to touch on that just because it's sort of so extreme. I mean, it's all very extreme, but that one is so extreme. It stands out. I mean that as a compliment. I mean, it's an
Thanks.
incredible achievement. But yeah, basically, I think the best way to do that is I'm not going to focus on a specific aspect of the race, but just to hear about the race in your own words. Anything that sticks with you, the terrain, obviously the distance, um, loved what you said about the mental side as well, because that's the bit that people don't see, if you like, just from watching the race. They don't. I mean, people describe it in their books and on podcasts and everything, but unless you're there, it's different. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that. I like to do the same thing with the 400 440 miles, I think it is. But yeah, just the things that stick with you about that race and the experience of that race, please.
Yeah, so yeah, the one that you're talking about, the Three Peaks, run the Three Peaks challenge. Um, basically, that was a fundraising challenge that I came up with on my own. For a few years now, for the past 4 years, I've fundraised for different charities. Every year, apart from one, I took a year off because I was just exhausted after a race, basically. But I've always done something round about the kind of November mark for mental health charities, whether it was Movember or whether it was Mind Charity. Um, and so this Three Peaks Challenge is a fundraiser challenge for a charity called Young Minds UK. Um, and the idea came about was that basically I wanted to again go as far as pushing myself to my limits, basically. And um, but within the time scale that I had, because I obviously had to take time off work to do this, and I don't want to um, be away from my kids too much. So I came up with the idea of running the three national peaks. So that's Snowdon, Scafell Pike, and Ben Nevis. And you do this challenge, the Three Peaks challenge, normally within 24 hours. And what you do is you drive between them all. So you hike up it, come back down, get a wee bus or drive to the next one, up, down, and then drive. So I decided that I wanted to do up and down the mountains and then run between them, up and down, then run between them, and then up and down. And so that would equate to 440 miles from the start of one mountain to the start finish of the other one. Um, as I thought that wouldn't be hard enough, I decided that I was going to start in Wales and finish in Ben Nevis, which is the highest of the three peaks. Um, so then, mentally, you're kind of thinking, well, I'm running uphill, so that's even harder. That wasn't hard enough, so I decided that I was going to ascend each of the mountains via their grade one scramble technical routes. So that was ascending Snowdon via the Ridge Cribgoch, um, going up Scafell Pike via gullies with boulder scree gullies. You're clambering down them. Actually, you had to scramble up and then you scramble down them, and it was just so loose and technical that you're one slip and you're going down forever. And then the idea was to ascend Ben Nevis via the ridge, the CMD are up there as well. Um, but yeah, so that came about, as I say, as an idea in my head, and I thought, can I make this work? Can I do it? And I just started the wheels in motion of thinking, right, timing wise, I could do it within this period of time. And then I just started, publicizing it around on my social media platforms that I was going to do it, asking people if they'd like to support in any way that they could, whether it's joining me for sections of it, basically, and the hope that I would get enough support that would be able to carry my kit from one point to the next. And then logistically wise, I'd need to work out where I was going to stay at the end of each journey and stuff. So it all started to unfold really quite well, and I had a really good, group of friends that committed to supporting me. one committed to supporting me from the very start to the very finish with his camper van. So he became basically chief support crew vehicle, but he was also basically there in the evenings and stuff as well. Um, and then I had some other friends who wanted to join me in different sections of it, and so we started in Wales, and we did the very first day really well. We ascended Snowdon via Cribgoch with beautiful weather. Well, I say beautiful. It was about 50-mile-an-hour winds, so it was windy, but it was dry. But we were nearly blown off the top a few times. It was just amazing. It's funny, I say that, isn't it? It's like we're nearly blown off the top of the mountain, but it was amazing. Because that's what really excited me about the whole journey is doing these mountainous areas, basically making it so technical and difficult. Because for me, I wanted to relate to the charity that I'm doing it for, Young Minds. Young people, struggle on a daily basis and they basically have to jump hurdles, climb mountains to get the support that they need out there. And so I thought, right, well, why not, make it as difficult for me as they would feel. So that obviously got me through quite a lot of the stuff. And day one, we covered 56 miles in day one. And it was a good day. I had people joining me for the whole day. Um, and then in day two, we were then traveling. I then ran from Chester up to past St Helens near Preston. It was so that was a lot of flat road running and stuff. And I was tired by day two. I was not going to lie. I didn't have a great sleep on day one, the end of day one, but I wasn't feeling great. I had a really bit of a dry throat coming on, and I thought I was just feeling run down. I just thought there's been a lot of pressure building this up, logistically planning it. Endless, nights of no sleep was on top of what I get anyway, and so I thought I'm just run down. I'll be fine. I'll battle through it. Um, and so as day two went on, yeah, I started to feel a bit worse. The throat was getting a bit more sore. And I covered about 50 miles on day two. Um, Going into day three, the throat was getting really sore. It was getting very difficult to even swallow any fluids, let alone trying to eat. It was like having a cactus in there or just sandpaper. Everything you swallowed was sandpaper. And so that was affecting me to be able to eat and hydrate well. Um, on top of that, my Achilles started to play up. So that became really, really stiff. And it was like really painful to kind of run on. But I adjusted my gait and how I was running to be able to allow for that. So I wasn't basically flexing the Achilles as much. And I was basically just doing more of a kind of stomping thing, stomping along. Um, but by day four, I knew day four was going to be a very tough day because that's when I hit the lakes. And it was a 65-mile day, including going up Scaffold Pike. And I was feeling horrendous by that point. I remember waking up at 5 a.m. that morning and I just broke down crying. And the accommodation, I was on my own in the accommodation. And I was just thinking, "Oh, this is horrendous. I'm at the lowest point right now, and but we just got to get on with it. And so I did. I plodded on for about 6 miles that morning at 6 a.m. until I met my good friends who then escorted me up to Scaffold Pike. Um, and again, when I got to the mountain area, I just picked up because that's where I love to be, and I felt really happy. I was really, really happy to be where I was. Still struggling a lot, painfully, my Achilles and everything else, but um, I was a lot better at that point. But I was also falling back on my schedule so much by that point too. I'd had to cut cut the next day short and basically allow an extra day to finish. I'd planned to do it in 10 days, but because of the way that I was feeling, the schedule was dwindling a lot. So we said, right, we'll reschedule everything. We got past the lakes, got out of into Keswick for the Thursday evening it was. And we said, right, we'll rearrange all the accommodation and we'll start afresh tomorrow. Give us that one day extra that we need. And then obviously mentally helped me a lot, although I was still feeling terrible. We drove from Keswick to Carlisle where my accommodation was, and On the way there, I phoned up to make an emergency appointment over the online appointment with the GP for the next morning, just to try and get some antibiotics for my throat, and which thankfully I got the next morning. So then I was delayed to start that day, but we got the penicillin, which was fantastic. And I started taking them, and I then ran from pretty much Keswick back to Carlisle, again with a very close, good friend of mine, and felt really well. And mentally felt well. I was broken a lot, but mentally felt well. And then wasn't until we got to Carlisle that I spoke to the person who was running with me on the Monday, and they had COVID. They were sick with COVID. And so the next day we continued from Gretna a little bit, and then I did a COVID test, and I tested positive for COVID on day 5, which was just across the border into Kilpatrick Fleming, just past Gretna. Um, and that morning, the morning of running, I was just broken. I just knew that I had got it, and I knew that, this was going to have to be the end of it. Although I wanted to keep going, and I did announce that I was going to keep going once I'd found that I had COVID. I continued for another 6 miles, and I had COVID all week. That was the thing. Obviously, just doing the test by that point was just the point of me going, right, well, how can we go on with this? And I continued to run for 6 miles, and then the realization of going, I can't go on. I can't put anyone else at risk, my support crew, my runners. And I was also, told by some of my medical race friends that I was just putting myself at too much risk from heart failure. I was like, okay, so I need to stop. And that broke me. It really, really broke me, because I was not ready to finish. Although I was feeling broken, my throat was getting a bit better. But yeah, that mentally is still sitting with me really at the moment. That it's a struggle to kind of get over that, really. And so there was lots of ups, and there's lots of downs, lots of highs, lots of lows. But towards the last couple of days, I got to covering 250 miles over 5 days, um, and yeah, I wouldn't change any of it apart from not having COVID, really. Um, it was just an amazing journey with my amazing friends and amazing surroundings. And I went to some amazing places mentally, pushing myself, they talk about basically, going to the pain cave. That's a place that you go where you're expecting the pain, and you're dealing with the pain mentally. And people deal with that in a different way. I basically deal with it and just shutting everything out, and getting my head down and getting what they call as an ultra shuffle on. And it's basically just moving one foot in front of the other very, very slowly, or as fast as you can. But you switch off from everything. You go into a zone, you go into a flow state, is where I found myself for quite a lot of that last day, is just going into this flow state, and just yeah, it's like a meditative state, really, to be honest. You you just feel like your body's been taken over a lot, and by like this motor, and it's just chugging along. It's like having an old Fiesta, right? A really old one, right? And it's just chugging along there, just chugging along. And as soon as you stop, it's going to be a nightmare to start again. You're going to have to get the choke out, and you're going to have to try and, so you don't stop. You just keep chugging along and chugging along. Um, and that's what I like. I like being able to go to those places, because I think that it's for me, uh, it helps me mentally on a day-to-day basis, of when I come up against some struggles on a daily basis. I think back and go, well, I've had this and been in a tougher situation, and I can get through that and get through this. So yeah, that's it. So it's not finished yet. We're going back next year, to finish, or to start again.
And that is, well, first of all, that's an incredible story, Martin. I mean, it's wow. I mean, attempting that amount of distance, doing it for a good cause, running so far with COVID, even though you had to stop. I mean, it's incredible. Testament to your toughness and your will of steel, I got to say. Now, as I said to you before, I'm going to have to be off on the hour. I usually have slightly more time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to combine two topics to wrap this up. and we'll cover those, and then um, I'll tell you what we'll do, and then next year when you run it again, we'll do an update, and we'll tell everyone how it's gone. But those two topics are basically your future plans. So with the Three Peaks again, with any other races that you've got your eye on that um, you haven't done yet, basically, or basically the things that are lighting the fire inside of you. And for time, I'd also like to combine with that any people you'd like to thank, because I know on your Instagram there's a nutrition company that you mentioned, Powered By, and there may well be other sponsors with that as well. So those couple of things in the 10 minutes we have left, and I'm sorry by the way because I usually give it about an hour and a half, but because of moving, I've had to cancel and move a couple of people like you, and I've put them back to back to try and catch up. So my apologies, it's my fault. But in that time that we do have, could you share with us your future plans and anyone you'd like to thank, please? I don't mind how far ahead we go in the future, but just to hear about the things that are continuing to light that fire inside of you would be wonderful to hear about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no need for apologies at all. Honestly, it's just been great to be able to talk to you. And I think I mentioned to you before, I kind of get it, I go into a bit of a tangent and waffle a lot. So sorry for kind of you just going on too much about some topics
No, no,
basically.
it's
But
great. I love. Sorry to cut in there, Mike. No, don't apologize for that because I love your passion, and I love your energy and this sort of electric, sort of powerful energy you bring to, obviously, to this call and life in general. So there's no need to apologize for that. I mean, in that sense, it's better than what I was expecting because I knew it would be good. But then when you bring the enthusiasm and the sort of power of, like a sort of life force, it's hard to explain it. You bring to this. I love that, and the world needs more of that. So definitely don't apologize for that. But anyway, sorry, back over to you. Yeah, the future plans. I'm super excited to hear about that, and the sponsors or help us in any form, please. Thank you.
yeah, I think so yeah, future plans wise is yeah, there's the Three Peaks Challenge. April the 11th. Yep, April the 11th. I'm going back and I'm starting it all over again. I'd thought about and I'd announced that I was going to start from where I finished off. But over the past 7 or 8 weeks, that has not sat well with me mentally. It's not sat well with me, full stop, really. And so I've announced I'm going back to Wales. I'm going to start all over again. And so that is what's kind of coming up next. That is April for me. There's nothing between that at the moment, and there's nothing in the foreseeable future after that. Mentally, I'm just 100% focused on that, and basically achieving that and getting that done. It's going to be another big ask of people to support me. Friends have already jumped on and committed to jump supporting me in certain areas again, which is amazing. Because this is all self-supported. I don't have any backing or money coming from anywhere else to do this. So I take time off my work and stuff. But so that's coming up in April, and I'm just focusing on training for that at the moment, really. Race wise, yeah, I'd love to jump into any races. I think for me, there are, there's certainly a few races in this country that I'd like to do. But I'll be honest with you, a lot puts me off with that is the money, is the entry fee to a lot of these races, and I'm just getting to the point now where I can't afford that type of money to do these bigger races that I want to do. And I mean, we're talking bigger races, multi day races. Price ticket of 1,000 or above to get into. And I look at those and think, well, what's stopping me from going and doing that route myself? So that's kind of what's next for me. After my challenge, I think I will basically be looking at focusing on um, coming up with another bonkers kind of distance challenge to set myself. And that there's I mentioned before there's this round called the Paddy Buckley round, which I've attempted twice and failed twice. It's a very tough round, and so I'm going to jump on that. But there will be races, and I'll probably jump into another 100 miler at some stage next year, just to kind of more so I think for seeing where I am fitness wise, really. But yeah, I'm powered by Voom Nutrition, basically is the nutrition that I use for my hydration and energy bars and stuff. And so I use their stuff for my recovery as well as during my running and training. I use their stuff for my recovery as well. It's the only thing that I've ever found that kind of really sits well with me. Um, and yeah, they, there are there's no other ones. That I basically I use them. I try and eat as much of normal stuff as I can, basically. Um, but um, but yeah, I mean, other brand that I use a lot of, Altra, my shoes. I used to be an ambassador for them, and they were very, very kind enough to give me some shoes before my challenge, which was an amazing thing for them to do. So they pretty much supported me from the feet up, so to say, during that challenge, basically. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at and where we're gonna go, I think.
Absolutely amazing. Well, honestly, when I say that this has exceeded my expectations today, I really do mean it because I knew there would be some amazing stories from obviously from the races, from Three Peaks, from everything. I mean, I knew that, and I knew there'd be some good mindset things. But I'm grateful that we've been able to go deeper into this than that. We've been able to talk about the
Mm.
mental highs and lows. We've been able to talk about managing the high energy. We've been able to talk about some of these points that I regard to be quite inspirational. Obviously, as I said, I mean, we always scratch the surface, but I went into it with, okay, let's get some mindset topics and let's get some fun stories from your races as to sort of ticks on the list, if you like. We got those and then some, and then we've gone a lot deeper into it. And as I've already said, your enthusiasm, your passion for life, for running, it's absolutely incredible. The high energy side of things and the sort of the zest, that's the word I'm looking for, that you bring to this, absolutely incredible. So I'm going to release this as soon as I can next week. I'll send it to you as soon as it's out there. And obviously we can both share it together to get the most views. Um, I'm very grateful for your time. I'm very grateful for your openness, and I hope that this brings, even a few more eyes, if you like, watching what you're doing and getting involved in what you're doing. I really hope it does. I'm sure it will inspire people and help people chasing their dreams and goals and everything. So super grateful to you, mate, for everything and for being an open book for me today. Because I mean, yes, I ask the questions, but then it's up to you to share everything that you've shared. So thank you very, very much, and it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you and to spend this time with you. So thank
You
you.
too, you too. Thank you so much for inviting me on. It's been amazing to talk to you, and I noticed you had a birthday recently as well, so I should wish you a happy birthday. Sorry, completely forgot. And yeah, I hope that yeah, we can catch up again soon. So thanks for everything. It's been amazing chatting to you, and hopefully we'll chat again soon.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the happy birthday. Great birthday. My first one in a different country as well. So, thank you very much. Yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch. Even after this is released and everything, we'll keep in touch. I'll be keeping an eye on what you're doing. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.